What if I told you that some farmers are quietly making 5 figures a month raising animals you've probably never even heard of? And no, I'm not talking about cows, chickens, or goats. I'm talking about livestock so niche that many farms in the US aren't even competing for these markets yet. These aren't just quirky side projects. These animals are driving some of the highest profit margins in small-scale farming right now. From tiny species that turn kitchen scraps into premium protein to specialty meats that sell for $20, $30, even $150 per pound, the opportunities are wide open for the people who get in early. I'm going to break down the 7 most profitable livestock, explain exactly what makes them so valuable, and share real numbers from farmers who are already making this work. Stick with me until the end, because the animal at number 7 outperforms cattle, pigs, and sheep combined when it comes to profit per acre. These are real numbers from farmer case studies, but profits vary depending on location, market demand, and whether you sell direct to consumer. Always do your research and cross-check your local numbers before diving in. Before we dive into the list, it's important to understand why these unusual species are so profitable. Conventional animals like beef cattle, commercial broilers, and dairy cows compete in crowded markets. Prices are largely set by large-scale operations, so smaller farms often struggle with thin margins, high feed costs. Niche livestock flips that script completely. These animals succeed because they serve specialty markets where demand is rising, but supply is scarce. Instead of selling into wholesale commodity chains, farmers are going direct to consumer, to chefs, local restaurants, specialty grocers, and farmers markets. And when supply is limited, prices stay high. Some of these animals can generate 3 to 10 times more revenue per acre than beef or pork, even when raised on a smaller scale. That's because consumers aren't just buying the meat or products, they're buying access to something they can't get anywhere else. We're talking about $8 quail eggs, $150 EMU oil, $25 a pound game birds, and 5-figure niche contracts that are quietly transforming small farms across the country. And the best part? Most of these operations don't require hundreds of acres or massive infrastructure. With the right species and the right market, even a backyard setup can outperform traditional farm models. Now let's get into the list, starting with an animal so small you can raise hundreds of them in a garage. And yet it's helping some farms make more money than running dozens of beef cattle. Let's start with an animal so small you can raise hundreds of them in your garage. Yet it's quietly becoming one of the highest profit livestock in the US. This tiny bird can earn $40,000 a year on half an acre. And most farmers have never even considered raising them. Quail, especially Coturnix quail, are exploding in demand thanks to their premium eggs and meat. A single quail lays around 250 to 300 eggs a year. And because quail eggs are considered a delicacy, they often sell for $5 to $8 per dozen at farmers markets and Asian grocery stores. The meat is even more lucrative, with dressed birds going for $12 to $15 per pound, sometimes more in upscale restaurants. The best part? Quail grow fast. In just 6 to 8 weeks, they're ready for processing, which means multiple revenue cycles in a single season, far faster than chickens or ducks. Here's an example. A small homestead in Oregon keeps 1,200 Coturnix quail on less than half an acre. Between meat and eggs, they gross over $40,000 a year, selling entirely direct to consumer. Their biggest challenge isn't raising the birds, it's keeping up with demand. And if you're thinking quail are limited to boutique markets, think again. Demand is skyrocketing among health-conscious buyers, gourmet chefs, and specialty stores across the US. Yet very few farms are producing them at scale, which is why prices stay high. This number reflects farms with steady buyers in strong markets. Local pricing and demand will determine your results. But here's the twist. As profitable as quail are, our next animal can outperform them completely. It takes up almost no space, eats waste instead of feed, and turns garbage into premium protein that's reshaping the livestock industry. This one surprises almost everyone. Black soldier fly larvae are becoming one of the fastest-growing profit streams for small farmers in the US. Here's why. The global demand for sustainable animal feed is exploding. Farmers, Aquaculture operations and even pet food companies are looking for high-protein, eco-friendly alternatives to soy and fish meal. Enter black soldier fly larvae. They convert food scraps, manure, and farm waste into high-quality protein and fat, and the dried larvae sell for $4 to $8 per pound. Even better, the frass, the leftover residue, is a nutrient-rich organic fertilizer that commands its own premium price. Here's a real example. A farmer in Florida built a small-scale system using recycled food scraps from restaurants. They produce 200 pounds of larvae a week on just a few hundred square feet, selling directly to backyard chicken keepers and local farms. Their monthly revenue? Around $1,500 to $2,000, from what used to go straight into the landfill. And the best part? If you raise your own poultry, pigs, or fish, the larvae double as on-farm feed, replacing expensive store-bought protein. It's a closed-loop system. Fewer costs going out, more profits staying in. Startup success depends on consistent local demand for insect protein and access to buyers like poultry farms, fish hatcheries, or pet food markets. If you've ever wondered where upscale restaurants and hunting preserves get their game birds, here's the secret. They'll pay top dollar for pheasants, partridges, and other specialty species. A dressed pheasant can sell for $18 to $25 per bird. And if you have the right markets, the demand is almost endless. Upscale chefs love them for their rich flavor, while hunting preserves buy thousands every year to stock private shoots and seasonal hunts. Here's an example. A farm in Texas dedicated 10 acres to raising pheasants and cleared over $60,000 in a single season. Most of their sales came from a mix of contracts with high-end restaurants and a nearby game preserve. The margins are strong, but there's a catch. You'll need solid fencing and predator control since game birds are flighty and more vulnerable than chickens. That said, for farms near gourmet markets or hunting clubs, this niche is wide open and far less competitive than traditional poultry. And while $25 a bird sounds great, our next animal is even more impressive. It thrives in small spaces, reproduces fast, and can generate steady four-figure income streams from just a handful of breeding pairs. This market works best near high-end restaurants, game preserves, and urban buyers. Rural demand may be lower. Meat rabbits are quietly becoming one of the highest-margin livestock for small farms and homesteads, especially when you focus on heritage breeds like silver fox, Rex, and New Zealand whites. Unlike traditional meat animals, rabbits grow fast, reproduce year-round, and require minimal space. A single doe can produce up to 200 pounds of meat per year, and that meat often sells for $8 to $12 per pound direct to consumer. Add in pelts, which bring another $5 to $10 each, and suddenly you've got multiple revenue streams from the same animals. Here's a real example. A homestead in North Carolina raises just 40 rabbits on 1 acre and nets around $35,000 annually selling meat and hides at farmers markets and to boutique butchers. Their startup costs? A fraction of what you would spend on other livestock. And because rabbit meat is lean, high in protein, and often marketed as a health food, demand keeps growing among health-conscious buyers, high-end restaurants, and specialty grocers. Profits depend on local meat pricing, pelt markets, and strong direct-to-consumer sales. But if you think 12 per pound meat is impressive, the next animal is in another league entirely, selling specialty cuts that chefs compete for, with farms reporting $40,000 to $50,000 in annual profits from just a handful of breeding stock. When it comes to specialty meats, heritage pigs like Mangalitsa, Mulefoot, and Coon are in a league of their own. Chefs, high-end butchers, and foodies compete for them because their meat is richer, darker, and loaded with the kind of marbling you just can't get from commercial pork. And that premium quality comes with premium prices. Heritage pork routinely sells for $14 to $22 per pound, and charcuterie cuts like Mangalitsa lardo or prosciutto can fetch even more. Here's an example. A small Tennessee farm runs just 5 Mangalitsa sows on pasture and nets over $45,000 per year selling pork directly to restaurants and local markets. Because these pigs thrive on grass, acorns, and farm scraps, feed costs stay low, which drives margins even higher. But here's where it gets interesting. These pigs open doors to niche collaborations most farmers never even consider. Some Mangalitsa producers are partnering with chefs for whole animal sales at premium prices, locking in thousands of dollars per transaction instead of piecing out individual cuts. Heritage pork pricing relies on selling to restaurants or boutique butchers. Commodity markets pay much less. Still, as profitable as heritage pigs can be, the next animal blows even these numbers away. Its oil sells for $150 a gallon, its meat commands premium prices, and the hides are used in high-end leather products. It's one of the most overlooked markets in U.S. farming, and the demand curve is climbing fast. If there's one niche market that catches almost everyone off guard, it's emus and ostriches. These birds are exotic, but their value comes from the three separate profit streams they produce: meat, oil, and hides. Let's start with emu oil. This is where things get wild. Used in cosmetics, skincare, and natural health products, emu oil sells for over $150 per gallon wholesale. A single adult emu can produce about 2 gallons per harvest, meaning just 10 birds could generate $3,000 in oil alone, before you've even touched the meat or hides. The meat itself is lean, red, and highly sought after in the exotic protein market, often selling for $15 to $25 per pound. And ostrich hides? Fashion houses pay premium rates for their unique texture, supplying another entire income stream on top of meat and oil. Here's a case study. A Texas farm raising just 15 breeding pairs of emus grosses over $100,000 annually by diversifying their revenue across these three products. Yes, the infrastructure costs are higher up front, and handling these massive birds isn't for beginners. But for farms looking to stand out in a crowded market, the profit potential here is unmatched, and barely anyone is tapping into it. These numbers assume you're targeting premium oil buyers and exotic meat markets. Startup costs are higher, and handling large birds requires planning. But as lucrative as emus and ostriches are, the final animal on our list outperforms everything we've covered so far when it comes to profit per acre. It's an exploding demand nationwide, sells out months in advance, and yet almost no one is raising them at scale. At the very top of our list is an animal most people associate with history, but today it's driving some of the highest profit margins per acre in U.S. agriculture: American bison. Demand for bison meat is skyrocketing thanks to its lean, nutrient-dense profile and booming popularity among health-conscious consumers. And because production is still limited, prices stay high: $16 to $22 per pound retail, sometimes even more for premium cuts. Here's the kicker: bison thrive on pasture-based systems, requiring fewer inputs than cattle while delivering significantly better returns. According to USDA data, many small-scale bison operations are earning 2 to 3 times more net income per acre than comparable beef operations. Take Sweetgrass Bison Ranch in Montana as an example. They run fewer than 80 animals on about 100 acres and gross over $200,000 annually between direct-to-consumer sales and wholesale restaurant contracts. And because there's so little large-scale competition, they're often sold out months in advance. Bison require more fencing, upfront investment, and land access. The per-acre profits here reflect farms with high-value buyers already in place. Yes, bison require more land than quail or rabbits, but on a per-acre basis, nothing else on this list comes close. If you've got the space, or are working towards scaling into a premium protein market, bison are quietly becoming one of the highest-performing livestock businesses in the U.S. Now that we've gone through all 7, let's break them down based on profitability, effort, and scalability. Because the best animal depends on your land, goals, and market access. Fastest turnaround: quail. Take the crown here, ready in just 6 to 8 weeks, giving you multiple profit cycles per season. Highest dollar value products: emus and ostriches dominate thanks to $150 plus per gallon emu oil, luxury hides, and high-value meat. Best small space animals: quail, rabbits, and black soldier fly larvae. Perfect for urban and backyard farmers with limited acreage. Best for stacking profits: soldier fly larvae plus quail equals closed-loop system, which means cheap feed, plus premium eggs equals 40% higher net returns compared to running them separately. Highest long-term potential: bison led for farms with more acreage. Per-acre profitability outpaces beef, pork, and even heritage pigs. These numbers are based on farmer-reported averages from high-performing operations, and your results will depend on market demand, land size, and how you sell your products. What surprised us most while researching this? Some of the highest-performing farms aren't picking just one, they're layering systems, integrating 2 or 3 of these animals together, feeding waste from one species to another, and maximizing every square foot. The biggest takeaway is this: there's real money in unusual livestock, but the secret is finding the right animal for your land and your market. Whether it's $8 quail eggs, $150 emu oil, $25 pheasants, or premium heritage pork, these niches exist because most farmers aren't competing in them yet. Start small, test demand, build direct relationships with restaurants, farmers markets, and specialty stores. And when you find your lane, scaling becomes much easier, without fighting against commodity pricing. In our next video, we're diving into the 5 fastest-growing livestock markets in the US right now, including one that's projected to double in value by 2030. If you want to be ahead of the trend and lock in premium contracts before big players move in, that's the video you can't afford to miss. Hit like if you learned something new, subscribe if you want more farm-tested strategies like this, and let me know in the comments. Which of these animals surprised you the most?